Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I am Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. If you are a new subscriber, I would like to introduce you to the many places where you can find information about this blog. You can find it on audio podcasts that I have on Spotify and SoundCloud, Apple and Google Podcasts, Listen Notes, Odyssey, Podtail, and in quite a few other places. And the benefit of listening and tuning into the podcast is that you can have a hands-free experience. You can stay busy, you can drive, you can work, you can look after your kids, you can commute. And at the same time, because the podcasts have playlists, you'd be able to pick out a theme and basically work your way through it in half the time that it would take you here on the visual channel. I also have backup channels, and there's a more complete tally of the prophecies. I think here on YouTube, it might be about 545 prophecies. But on my alternate channels like Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon, especially Brighteon, there's 577 prophecies there. And that's because the entire cache of prophecies concerning COVID-19, everything that was there, all that was involved with it, you can only find it there because of YouTube policies. I'm no longer able to host such videos here. And so I'm going to continue making the prophecies. Like I said, there's quite a backup of prophetic words from the blog. So in the earlier years, the Lord had this tendency, and he still does it now, whereby he would give me a topic and then he would continually give me prophecy on it until I had stacked up 6, 7, sometimes 10 on the same subject in a relatively short space of time. And as I'd be making these prophecies, because more would still be coming in, I would often say, I'm not going to make every prophecy a video. I'm not going to make every prophecy a video because I've already covered this. And now we've seen it from this angle and we've seen it from that angle. And so I will move on to other prophecies. But I guess it would be in June. I think it was in June. So it's just a couple of weeks. The Lord spoke to me and he said, you will make every prophecy. And so you can expect to see every single prophecy that I have here on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog being made into a video. And the reason for that is because it is the Lord's request. It is the Lord's desire, and it is actually his instruction that every single message that he has given to me, even if it is a very short one, even if it is a very instructional one, it is the Lord's requirement, it is the Lord's request that it be made into a video, and so it will be. And so this prophecy that I'm making for you here, just a moment please. This prophecy that I'm making is one of the oldest that I have on this topic. The title of this prophecy is Potus, from June the 29th, 2019. And this is a prophecy that the Lord gave me in 2019 concerning then the sitting Potus, President Donald J. Trump. POTUS means President of the United States. To those who do not know what that acronym means, it means President of the United States. And this is one of the oldest prophecies that I have concerning the man who is known to America as ex-president or President Donald J. Trump. My president, people call him, not my president. Some people call him. This prophecy was given to me on June the 29th during the presidential term of Donald Trump. And when I received this word, I already knew that it was a very grave prophecy because of how God had been speaking about the man Barack Obama in times past. God has never made any bones to me about who Barack Obama is. So during the time that Barack Obama was actually coming into his first term of office all the way back in 2008, the Lord wasn't speaking to me about that man. The Lord wasn't saying anything to me about that man. The time that the Lord would start to bring up about Obama was in 2015. I think it's the first time that God started speaking to me about Obama. And the curious thing is that when God started speaking to me about ex-President Barack Obama, President number 44, he was called, the Lord did not mince his words. God didn't make any bones about who the man was or anything like that. The Lord first gave me a couple of dreams, and then as soon as the dreams had come, the Lord would just speak about him. And the Lord would not mince his words concerning Barack Obama. He would say that he is a wicked man. He would say that he is a cruel man. He would say that this man is a murderer. The Lord would always tell me, Celestial, whenever you see this man actually reveal himself, whenever you see this man uncover himself and show who he is to people, you should know instantly when you see Barack Obama coming to power that you have actually entered into the worst times that humanity has ever been through. So I've never labored under any misconceptions about who Barack Obama is. And in June 29, 2019, we were about, I would say 2.5 years into Donald Trump's presidency. And so when this word came, I immediately said that this is a grave prophecy coming to the United States of America. This word was given a few weeks ago, but I decided to wait. And indeed, it has come again. It is very serious, and we have to pay attention to what the Lord is saying. So this is the preface of this message from June 29, 2019. And it's not so much that ex-President Barack Obama is a threat to only Donald Trump. You have been here long enough, perhaps, if you have been here long enough to understand that Barack Obama is going to play a unique role in end times events. And even though a lot of people are very resistant to the idea that we are indeed in the end times, I myself am laboring under no misconception. I know what God has said. At least I have eyes to be able to see what is going on in the world. We cannot see 2,000 people losing their life in one flood. We cannot see 50,000 people losing their life in one earthquake in Syria, 2,000 taken in a night in Libya, and think because we are living in the so-called modern, so-called first world so-called developed nation of the United States, that it's simply normal passage of time and normal events when other people in other nations are being taken away in their thousands and their tens of thousands. And then we think, oh no, but we've always had floods and we've always had earthquakes. We're in the time of escalation that is going to take us to the end. And just as every other natural thing around us is heaving and rising and changing, I don't know why adults can't understand that politics will not be spared from that. And so it was about 2.5 years in, God gave me this word. Please listen, because America, you suffer from a lot of things. You suffer from a very resistant strain of defiance that indeed cannot be healed. The resistance that is inside America can never be healed. And this is why the Lord does not bother sending me with general revival prophecies or America's going to come back from these prophecies. But the word that I have been given, the word that is put in my mouth, is simply woe, lamentations, and distress. That is all God has given me to say to the United States, and that is all I will say to the United States. Suffer from blindness, cognitive dissonance, a lot of pride to reject the Lord's messages. And so no one should be surprised when the Lord's messages sound the way they sound. American nation, land of the blind and home of the deaf, your leadership is about to be interrupted. I see a short dagger come from the hand of conspirators, and the American leadership is cut short before its time. I see people fighting each other because of this. American brothers turn against one another because of this event. War will come to this country as a direct consequence of this brutal act. It may not happen immediately, but just as we are taught that the cause of World War I was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, when he was killed, it triggered a chain reaction that eventually set the whole world on fire. So also, the consequences flowing from this interruption in term have its own repercussions. Let the reader be wise and beware. Change is on the horizon. So you can tell immediately if you hear Archduke Ferdinand mentioned that we are in the territory of assassination. God is saying to America, the home of the blind and the land of the deaf, people who see and yet they do not see, people who can stare right at events taking place right in front of them, words being repeated back to them, not only by the few messengers that God has sent into them, but then the words are confirmed later by their own news media, and yet the people will see these two similar things and say, but they're not similar at all. We don't see where they match. God is saying that to America, that is the land of blind people and the home of deaf people, which means if you're blind and if you're deaf, you're actually being cut off from the two major senses that you need to be able to perceive rightly what is happening around you. So first thing, God is saying, America, you see nothing, but you very much claim that you see. America, you can't hear, but you very much insist that you can hear. And he was saying that your leadership will be interrupted. And what I said I saw is that I saw a short dagger. Now, there's these ancient daggers that they would always use in the old days when you're assassinating people, the old days before guns. You didn't really have a lot of options. You had to get up close to kill people. So one of the favorite ways of killing people was by this ring. They would have this ring and they would put poison in it. The upmarket people, I guess, those who like to do it classy, they would do it with poison. They would have this ring and they would tip it into the drink of the person. But you can understand that to tip poison into somebody's drink, you guys actually need to be close together having a drink. Next best option is that you would poison the drink immediately before the drink was taken to someone. And so that was one of the ways that they did it. But another way that they did it is very clear in what happened to Julius Caesar. They got Julius Caesar to come to the Capitol on a pretext, saying that they wanted to speak to him, Brutus and Cassius and the rest of them, the rest of the senators. They wanted to speak to him about this and about that. And he came for some strange reason without armed guards. So as I'm just giving you this light backdrop that I haven't gone and had to study up on anything, I want you to understand that at the moment when God has determined for a person to be destroyed, you will make the most nonsensical decisions and choices. Julius Caesar was a man who knew that he had enemies. So he never went anywhere without protection. But for some reason, when he was called to this so-called council to come to the Capitol, he went without even a single friend. He went without a single bodyguard. He went without a single +1 to what we now know turned out to be his death. And so at the time that God has determined that your hour has come and that your moment has come, someone who, for instance, of a normal trajectory, of their normal standard, of their normal, this is how he does things, this is how she does things, that person will begin to act contrary to what, looking back, we would think is wise. At the moment the person is doing it, nobody's going to be able to perceive anything. Even the person themselves will think, well, this is different. I'll go without my bodyguards. They smother me. They're smothering me. So they've been protecting you all this time. But then of the day of your death, you will come up with this wisdom, quote fingers, that they're smothering me. And then you go into your destruction. And so this picture of the short dagger is very much a part of old history, because without guns, you would literally have to come up close to a person to kill them. And most of the bolder assassins came right up on a king, for instance, in his bed to plunge a dagger into his heart. Sometimes they would fall upon the king from the back, as what happened to King Sennacherib in the Bible. It was his own sons who fell upon him when he was kneeling down to his God in the temple, and they killed their father. And so when God is showing the picture here and saying, I see a short dagger coming from the hand of the conspirators, then what the Lord was showing me all the way back in June of 2019, please excuse the noise, I'm not going to stop. He was showing that there is actually an assembly of conspirators within the land of America. So as God has already said that the nation is blind and the nation is deaf, this definitely means that a lot of people do not perceive a schism within the government. A lot of people think that the government is a whole entity, that you look at it and it has the basic, the red party, the blue party, and the independents, those independently wealthy who run on their own ticket and what that is. And so people don't, the majority of this nation actually, it's people who hang out on channels like this or hang out on the conspiracy channels or the prepper channels. It's that very small contingent within a large mass. I will always keep reminding us of nearly 340 million people. Our population is growing by the minute. So it's a very small contingent of people who actually know that America is the home to conspiracy. It's a small contingent of people who actually know that many things, many landmark things in America are actually the fruit of a conspirator's tree. And so with that small number that knows, the majority of people only see their government as their government, and they do not know that there's a truth behind it, and they do not know that conspirators work night and day within the United States government to bring about outcomes that favor their plan. What is their plan? Is their plan American longevity? Is their plan to keep raising the flag of freedom high and following the ideals that they have sold the American people? Not at all. The conspirators of America have a far higher plan that you can hear come out of the mouth of George Bush Sr. when he said that we have a unique opportunity now to craft for ourselves a new world order. And this idea is greater than any one nation. Now imagine, America doesn't see herself as any one nation. She sees herself as the nation. And so to see a sitting president intimating, hinting, and pointing to an ideal that is not uniquely American, why would an American president say that there's an opportunity to craft something that is bigger than the country he's supposed to be ruling for, representing, rooting for, upholding, and building? Why would a man from within the nation be pointing to something that is external of the nation and something that his own tongue says he puts higher than the welfare of the nation? America has been staring at her conspiracy, and her conspiracy shot President JFK. But America does not know that the existence of the conspirators and the death of her presidents are synonymous. And so I said that I saw in the spirit, in a vision, a dagger coming from the hand of conspirators, and that American leadership would be cut short before its time. And I said that after that, I saw people greatly fighting one another to the point that American brothers turn against one another because of the work of the conspirators' dagger. And I said, war will come to America as a direct consequence of this brutal act. So we can all know and agree that being stabbed to death, a short, sharp death, is not an easy death. It's not growing old and being surrounded by the children and giving out their inheritance and then going on to be with your Lord and Savior. To die by assassination, the very first thing that it tells you is that you are not wanted. An assassination does not give mixed messages. People who are wanted are not assassinated. So to be assassinated is a very clear, hard to mistake expression of rejection of something. And I say that as a result of the brutality of this act of the conspirators' dagger, I saw war coming to America, and I saw that it was a war that would not break out overnight. And then Archduke Ferdinand is now mentioned by the Lord. It says, just as the cause, we are taught that the cause, the triggering cause of what eventually became World War I, where the different parties lined up, they separated, they picked sides, and then they started fighting and declaring, I declare war, and I declare war. That's how they used to do it. The smoking wick, the smoking tinderbox in the midst of that was this shooting of the Austrian leader by a Bosnian student. That is what served as a trigger. But America, you have been told for many years now, and if you were collectively people who could benefit from the wisdom and the revelation that the Holy Spirit brings to you through this channel, then you would have understood that God says that there are many explosives planted in America. And these conspirators are not like the conspirators of old who would get together and plan on one Julius Caesar. They would blame one Julius Caesar for the problems of their nation. And then they would say, with him gone, the nation shall live. And so conspirators would actually convince themselves that this one man is the whole cause of all the problematic ills that we see in our society. Pluck up this weed, they would tell themselves, and Rome would live once more. But it was not like that. When nations come to the point where they need to be killing their leaders to be free of their leaders, whether or not the leader is actually the cause of the problem, many tendrils have already gone out in the society. And so very often you pluck up the weed expecting to go back to utopia, but what you actually pluck up is that little pin that is hooked into a grenade. And once you pull it up, that is when you learn that the entire land was already rife with sickness. And by pulling that pin out of the grenade, you have no seconds left to flatten yourself and run for cover. And so God was showing that by simply touching this man who is called Donald J. Trump, America would end up in a war, and the direct consequence of that war would be the death of Donald Trump. I saw that when he was killed, it triggered a chain reaction that eventually set the whole world on fire. So what is God saying? That from the civil war that comes in America, no nation is going to know peace. So let us pause here for a moment. Right now, all the nations of the earth are putting their mouth into an in-house problem. The question of U.S. elections is not a Kenyan's business. It is not a Ukrainian's business. You have your own elections in your own countries. It is not French business. It is not German business. U.S. elections, if all things are fair, fine, and equal, are U.S. citizens' business. That's why only U.S. citizens can vote in their elections. But for some reason, because the wind of the Spirit is stirring up the atmosphere, because all nations are about to get served some kind of serving that will stick in their throat. If you've ever had food stick in your throat and you now think, I'm about to go and meet the Lord, you can't breathe, you can't pull air in, you can't cough that piece out, and tears begin to stream from your eyes because of your distress. God is using this nation as a central grenade pin that is going to set many nations on fire. And I say to you that when your nations are burning, you should not cry. You should stay in the midst of the flames and say, but we enjoy this because you have taken your tongues to participate in something that ostensibly, on the surface of it, has nothing to do with you. I'm actually going to tell you a small snippet of the conversation that the Lord gave me this morning. And God is basically saying to you foreign nations that cannot keep your tongue when he is joining America, that there's enough for all of you. He has enough. What he's giving America, the Lord wants you to know. In every country of the world where Donald Trump is now your free uncle, right? He is your uncle by non-association. He's your uncle he's your uncle that your mother doesn't know of. Your mother's brother that she is not aware that you have given her because of your perplexing insanity of linking yourself into a nation that is right now in the bog, in the swamp, going down under the weight of her progressively increasing judgments. God wants you to know through me, his messenger, that there's enough for you after he is done with America. He will not run out of fires. God wants me to tell you, countries that have volcanoes, that your volcanoes are going to open up after 200 to 300 years of inactivity. In some cases, 40, 50 years. You waited for that volcano 40, 50 years and it did nothing in the past. And so you came and you built a bustling metropolis around it. God wants you to know that that volcano that is quiet is going to wake up and it is going to eat you and your children in surprise lava flows. I'm telling you, the lava of the future is not going to be the slow kind that people love to photograph and make documentaries about in Hawaii. It is going to come like sheets of water. Exactly as they died in Pompeii when the ash fossilized them, people are going to be found like crispy chicken wings, paused. And at the time it's happening, let me tell you what the press will tell you. Because you can tell that this is the prophetic utterance of the Lord because it has nothing to do with the message from 2019. The press will be telling you in French, quel dommage, which means how sad, how sad. In English, they will say a terrible tragedy, a terrible tragedy. But I'm here to report to you from heaven.com. What is happening is the justified punishment that you have brought on yourself. Your wells will run dry in your country. I am telling you now, for I see people gathered around wells that serve entire areas and trying to pump them with that strange pump to no avail. They will cough out dust for you. The Lord will make his displeasure so sore among the sons of men, because what you are basically telegraphing to God with your mouths that you cannot keep shut. Despite how many years I have sat here warning you, you have decided, like America, whose tongue is her biggest organ. America, your tongue hangs out like that comical dog from the old cartoons. Goofy's dog, Pluto. The dog who is 90% tongue, the tongue is always hanging out. That is your appearance. The size of your mouth, your teeth, and your tongue are the reason that you will be devoured of judgments. But you foreign nations who are so unwise that you will gather around a judged nation to surround it, to ring fence it, and to lift your hands against God and say, not so, not so. We proclaim her righteous. The United States is a great country. I see this every day. I prophesy to you flood, fire, and destruction upon your lands, says the Lord. The Lord will rebuke you in a displeasure so harsh. God was telling me this morning to tell them that although David had a good heart, For David's sin, his firstborn ate the bullet. Was there a bullet in the Old Testament? Had the gun been invented yet? David's baby ate the bullet of his father's ill-advised entanglement with a woman who was not his wife. You outside this country, you do not fear God. You are very, very foolish and unwise. And the reason that you act like fools is because Babylon prepared a fool's meal for herself. But before she ate of it, she asked you, would you like some? Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand. So says prophet Jeremiah. And from her wine, the nations have run mad. You have killed yourself in foreign countries and brought the displeasure of God upon you. Because when you saw America going down, this great whorish idol upon the earth, you, like Uzzah, put out your hand to prop her up and say, don't fall, beloved. We love you in Uganda. We love you in Malawi and South Africa. We love you in the UK. You are our protector in the Philippines and in Korea. We are your friend. This is what you did. But I promise you that when floods begin to wash over your crops and all your arable land turns to swamps, what I'm seeing right now is just when water floods and the water has no intention of leaving. You don't know how resistant and how stubborn floodwater can be. I see the floodwater sitting and just the little pieces of the corn. You know how when corn is growing and it's doing well, it begins to get all bushy and spiky at the top when the ears start to come? I see that the places where people grow their basics will be flooded, and you will be thinking it's almost the heat season. That water will not go. That water will be the first water on earth that will prove to you that the sunshine cannot evaporate, judgment water. It will sit in your houses. It will sit on your land. You will not reap a harvest that year. You will eat what is inside cans and start to pray. Because America is your God. The real God in heaven you have no regard for. You only want to open your mouth and try to stuff God's judgment back in his mouth. You will get a 2-for-1. America will get hers, and then you of the foreign nations that constantly lift her up and proclaim she can never be judged because she is God's favorite. God will judge the favorite, and then he will judge the favorites +1. This is the word of the Lord. Those who have wisdom, you will hear. Those who lack wisdom, you will eat the bullet that King David's baby ate. The baby was blameless. The baby, Bathsheba's first baby with David, did nothing. That son died, though his father pleaded with God for mercy, out of his true remorse, out of what God himself called a good heart. You, that is the tail of this lioness. Babylon is the lioness, and then you, the slave nations around the world who cannot learn, you are her tail twitching back and forth, provoking God. After the lioness is taken care of, God will cut the tail off, and he will use it for something that Africans know well. That thing that they use to keep the flies away, the thing that the kings carry, he will use that tail for his glory. And by this you shall learn sense. You will learn sense, nations. You will learn who God is. You will learn who you are. You will learn who a prophetic messenger is. God will set up a master class. At the end of that class, I know when you see me on the street, you will cross to the other side rather than to risk even telling me, hello, Celestial. So let it be as it is until now, until that day. So God was showing me that despite what the entire world thinks, President Donald Trump, or ex-President Donald Trump, Donald J. Trump, was going to lose his life, and that was going to be a powder keg, a tinderbox, just as World War I was set aflame because of Archduke Ferdinand's premeditated assassination at the hand of conspirators. So too, God says, this American assassination of Donald Trump will eventually make the whole world set on fire. So the whole world is going to feel the chain reaction of watching this central nation, or at least the nation that centers herself, experience a modern day assassination. The last assassination, to my knowledge, was JFK. So God says that the consequences flowing from this interruption will have its own repercussions, and that the reader, I was talking to those who would read the prophecy, I will make sure to leave the link for you, should read what God is saying and beware for changes on the horizon. And so then I had this vision, and this thing really put me in awe because of the way God did it. It was a very live action vision. And what I saw was, I saw the Capitol, I saw Washington, D.C., and I saw the monument of Abraham Lincoln. I simply called him a man sitting on a big gray throne in the capital city of Washington, D.C. This is an honorable man, much loved by Americans. But in his day, or in his time, somebody shot him because they disagreed with his leadership. In his time, somebody shot him because they disagreed with his leadership. They disagreed with his policy of basically freeing slaves, emancipation. They disagreed, and they were angry about how it hurt the southern states who relied on slave labor to function. As a result, his leadership was interrupted by a bullet. President Abraham Lincoln's term was cut short. He was not killed by one man. One man pulled the trigger, but it was the work of many men who all agreed that he had to die because he wouldn't listen to them when they told him that he should stop with the process of emancipation. I repeat, President Lincoln's policies got him killed, not personal vendettas or any hatred of him personally. This is crucial to understanding this message. And so the vision that I saw is basically, I saw that big seat, that big stone seat that is there in DC of Abraham Lincoln. And as I was looking at the seat, Abraham Lincoln came to life. The stone statue basically came to life. And this man has such a calm demeanor about him. But he had a heavy looking face, meaning that his expression looked sad and tired. And he looked at me as if to say, and this is the message that was communicated to my heart when this statue came to life. The statue basically looked at me as if to say, so what's new? They did it to me, didn't they? They have done it before, and they will do it again. And I wrote, he is alive as he communicates this thought. But then he turned back to stone, and his eyes looked back out over the Washington Monument. And he's looking, but I know that that moment where he came to life is gone, and his eyes are not seeing anything anymore. And so you are seeing God representing here through God's own dramatic devices that I do not control. I do not give myself the dreams that I have. To those who say to me after I share my dream, but why did you do this instead of doing that? It's because I was dreaming. Wisdom person. It's because I was sleeping at the time that I'm not exercising on controlling my cognitive function. That is the time, if you would bother to read the book of Job, Job 33, I think it is, 15 to 18, where God communicates to men. He seals their instruction. He puts wisdom into the hearts of some, and he turns others away from their desire, which means that many times people do have dreams where God is warning them about things that will happen to them, but unfortunately they wake up and they dismiss it, and then the things do happen to them. Why? Because God gave you the wisdom, but you didn't allow him to seal your instruction. So I don't control the dreams that I have, and God is always making his mind and his thought known to me. There are hundreds of dreams on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. There's also hundreds of visions. There's also hundreds of prophetic words where I didn't exactly see any vision, but God would just dictate something to me, and then I will come back and I will proclaim it to you. And the general rule for those who actually bother to open the middle of their Bible and study the prophets is that once God has given the message to me, when God first gives me the message, even if it's from 2014, even if it's from 2012, that message is actually done. God is saying that this prophecy is so. But then the proclamation of that message is the time when the activation of the message comes. And Donald Trump's assassination, this is not the first time that it has been prophesied. There were two messages from 2020. One is called Little Fires and one is called Ezekiel 13. And by the Lord's grace, I will speak about both of them at the end of this message. But God is showing here something that he has always been saying, that there is a bounty on Donald J. Trump's life, that the bounty comes from a conspiracy, which means that whoever pulls the trigger is not the person that American TV is trying to tell you, that weird people with long hair and glasses who look like they don't even know how to get their own taxes together suddenly climb to the top of buildings and then say, I hate that guy, I will shoot at that guy. I've always told you that your TV is masterclass charade. It is programming for little children. It is where they put the storyline of the moment. If you will remember, when this assassination attempt, whatever it may be, happened, within days, Iran's name had dropped into the story. Right on cue. You can trust American lies to come right on cue like Pop-Tarts. Within mere days, they had stirred Iran into the mix, because why tell 1 or 2 or 3 lies when you can tell 58 and make it a bonanza? So as soon as I saw that Iran story, I just thought to myself, well, we are in the United States. Truth is always the last thing on the menu. There is a bounty on his head. It does come as the result of a conspiracy, but I will also add something else that the Lord gave to me just as I was putting myself together to give this message. That one will be titled Today's Date. It will not be titled June the 29th, 2019. He spoke it now, and you will hear it now, and it directly ties into this. So God gave me this vision of an American president who was a sitting president, and people shot him because they were against whatever it is that he was doing. They were against not agreeing with whatever his policy of the day was. And I saw at this time that they intended to kill this man exactly as President Lincoln was killed. President Lincoln died in public. He didn't die in his bed at home with his grandchildren around him. So what he communicated through this statue, through the vision of seeing the statue, is there is nothing new under the sun. They did it to me, didn't they? Meaning that I was shot by conspirators against my life. They have done it before, and they will do it again. And indeed, I've said to many people that America is a nation where they kill people in finance, they kill people in business. This is the land where Naboth will die for his vineyard. Naboth will die. If you don't know what that means, go and put Naboth vineyard into Google, and she will teach you where that part of the Bible is. Naboth will die in America for his vineyard. If Naboth is so unwise as to create anything that competes with what the government wants, Naboth will die. Naboth will be locked into his study. One of America's most obvious murders I've ever seen was the murder of that young Asian man. I have no idea what that Asian guy created, but he created something, and he was locked in his own study, and the study burned down. It was the only part of the house. How convenient. My goodness. He should have used asbestos in that part of the study. Maybe he should have gone old school. For how could that young man know, only in his 30s, that he would create something that was starting to have buzz, and before you know it, him, his study, his paperwork, his computer, his hard drives, that part of the house burnt down. And my, wasn't that young man's mother bitter? But she could not say anything, because this is America. This is the nation where during 2008 and shortly afterwards, bankers were swan diving off the top of their homes because they all were seized with such sadness over the slump of the economy that for some reason they all decided to jump from very high places at the same time. This is the nation where a very high profile murder was committed in Manhattan, and the storyline for that murder is still hitting the press to this day. The person was, I think, a young tech entrepreneur that had created some kind of financial app that was causing a lot of buzz in one of the biggest country, if not the biggest country in Africa, Nigeria. I think he was a young Indian guy or something like that, and he had created some kind of money app that was really causing waves in Africa, and they were trying to do a cross launch and also use it here. And then lo and behold, he went to one of the fanciest types of places. You know, the types of places that never have brutal murders because there's so many layers of security, like security at the door and a doorman and a very secure type of desk where you have to be able to prove your credentials before you went upstairs. Well, anyhow, somehow, some killers managed to make it all the way up there and chop that person up and put him in a duffel bag. So I guess we don't need to work hard to live in Birkin Towers, because Birkin Towers clearly doesn't offer any security from the U.S. government. Let me give you the controlled opposition flow for a minute. This is a nation that kills. This is a nation of conspirators. This is a nation where you speak too much truth to power, and then you will have an unfortunate accident and just be a byword in the local op-ed portion of the Wall Street Journal if you're lucky, but if not, you'll just end up in the Sun and the Post. A little footnote in Harper's Bazaar. And the people sit in a nation like this and say nonsensical things such as, but if it was true, wouldn't it be on the bought and paid for news that we trust? There is a conspiracy. There is an object of conspiracy, meaning the person that they have their eyes on. And God has already said in, I think, the 2023 prophecies and even some of the new ones that I have been bringing on the same topic in 2024, the Lord has already said that he's not going to do anything concerning this man. God has already taken his hand off Donald Trump. The only hand that is on Donald Trump is the hand of the people of America and, of course, all the groupies around the world. There is actually no divine hand upon that man. And I've always said how tragic and how sad the man that God abandons. How tragic and how sad the Saul. For God has told you that this man is Saul. And what is one of the defining moments of Saul's life? This day, the Lord your God has torn the kingdom from you. Has torn the kingdom from you, Samuel prophesied to him. And then he reached out to try and stop Samuel from going, because Saul was a man who hated to be ashamed in the eyes of the people. He was a people watcher. He was a people pleaser. He always had his eyes on the people, bigly, wanting them to laud him, wanting them to shout, Saul, Saul, and clash their shields to show solidarity to him. Samuel was about to take his leave after prophesying, and Saul reached out, no, please don't go. At least remain with me in the sight of the people. And he reached out to hold Samuel's garment to keep him, but the garment tore, and a small piece was left. So the majority of Samuel's clothes was still on him, and a small piece was in his hand. And Samuel prophesied, riffing right off that moment, and said, this day the Lord has torn the kingdom from you, and he has given it to one who is better than you. And then Samuel went to his house in Ramah, the Bible says, and he went no more to Saul. Tell me, who among us, what man born of woman can preserve his life when God has said, I have given your life to your enemies? And so, there is a conspiracy, there is an object of conspiracy, there is no protection from the divine hand of the Lord, as you are hearing, and perhaps maybe just this one time understanding. And I continue with the prophecy. America, there is an agreement to shoot the president, and after that, the hand of the conspirator will fall heavily on this country. Please listen. Conspirators will surge forward to plug the gap. I repeat and I reveal to you by the Spirit of the Lord, the ones you see rushing forward and scrambling to fill the gap, the ones who rush forward with solutions, ideas, suggestions, thoughts, platforms, reinstatement plans, and replacement strategies are the ones who have done this thing. Whether they do it as a total group or whether it's a few among them, when you see them spilling forward in a feeding frenzy, just like water surging in a river, then you have also seen the ones who planned and did this act. This is the word of the Lord. The American leadership is going to fall and crumble like a bag of bricks, and an eddy that is a strong, whirling pool of water will swirl forward to fill the gap. I see this eddy of water washing away the blood of the man who was killed, and his death will be lost in the noise of succession planning. That succession planning is in capital letters, and that is because God has been telling this stubborn country that you are no longer a free nation. Of course, because you never believe anything that the Holy Spirit says, you are waiting to see yourself in shackles and chains, which is a future time before you believe it. But to those who hear the Lord and believe it, God has been saying here for many years that America is going to completely lose her right to participate in election process, to participate in any kind of bylaws, selection, focus groups, all the things that keep people so busy in this country. Oh no, I'm going to we're having a little town hall here and a town hall there. All those things will be put away, and you will end up in a dictatorship that operates exactly like the medieval kingdoms of Europe. Succession planning is when old King Harry or old King Charles, ancient ones, not today, is coming on in years and develops a worrisome cough that makes it difficult for him to sit in state, because when the advisors to the crown are talking and the king is just hacking away and spitting blood into a hanky, it doesn't look good. Those are the times in which they begin to put unholy pressure on the queen, if she is still barren, to find a son or else. This is the time where they begin to look for young maidens who are fitting enough in the bloodline, because the kitchen maid, even though she's been the king's girlfriend for years, will never do when you need an heir. The queen comes under pressure to produce an heir. That whole process of looking for who comes next is called succession planning. If the king has an heir, such as King Josiah, who was very young when he came to the throne, when the king is spitting blood into his hanky, Josiah's training, the young one in waiting, will begin to intensify. Although he may be only 8, only 14, or only 12, or sometimes, if all things are lined up well, he might be 19 or even 21, taking the pressure off everyone. They will begin his instruction in matters of state, day and night. No more playing for that baby. No more playing for that teenager. No more running off and shooting foxes and riding your horse by the lake. It is time to prepare for the weighty mantle of kinghood to be put upon your shoulders. Now, if you're American, you might be wondering, but we don't do that. And that's because you're not listening. You are simply not listening. It has been done to the United States in the past, to all who know her history. She was nothing but a protectorate of the British. And God has already said here in prophecy that America began her life as a child. You began your life as a vassal, as a protectorate, as a place that the British just used to come and do whatever they were doing. And God says that is exactly how you will end your life. He said you began your life as a child, and you shall once more be a child at the end of it. I was thinking in my mind today, God, I know that when we are in the forest, these podcast people are going to cry. There must be 20 billion podcasts in America, because anytime this nation coughs, there are 20 billion channels uploading 20 billion. Have you seen that? Have you seen that? It's a plot. It's a ploy. What do you guys think? Leave your opinion in the... I said, Lord, what will people who are like this do in the forest? What do you think they will do when they're in the forest and they have nothing to talk about, nothing to upload? They're completely unfamiliar with worshiping you, Jesus. They are completely unfamiliar with sitting quietly in your presence. 35 years old, 42 years old, 51 years old, 67 years old. All they are used to is the sound of their dripping, wagging Pluto tongue. God, how will these people be able to take sane breaths when you have burned this country up and robbed them of everything that they talk about so much? And then I was just in silence. He didn't answer me, and I was just in silence. I don't always ask these questions for answers, because the answers are quite clear to anyone who wants to think about it. What shall a nation do when the prophecy of Isaiah that says, oh, then how the noisome city is silent? What will you do, America, when you have nothing to upload about? Because they're working you in the field, and the field is now the AI place where you will sit in front of the screen for 19 hours of a 24-hour day. 19 hours, and then at the end of it, they will give you those 6 grains of rice that I told you about, that they plan to give to everyone that they designate the poor. I saw the amount of food that they gave the poor, and I knew that in that tiny few bits of rice that they will put in the bowl, and people will be eating it exactly as you see in the dystopian movies. Fighting over another person's food, fighting over the sneakers and clothes of the dead. I knew this is all planned to destroy the people of this nation. The people of this nation are watching me now on super fast 1 gigabyte fiber optic optimum Wi-Fi. So why believe me? There's too much option. There's too much to watch. Why believe me? I'm simply one option among many. For now. And so God is saying, that there's an agreement to shoot this man, and that the hand of the conspirator will fall very heavily on the United States. America, I spoke of conspirators, and you have heard it here. If you have been here for even 5 minutes paying attention to the Master's Voice prophecies, then you know that America will fall to conspiracy, that the big idea, the New World Order, which is basically Satan's mastermind, master plan, his biggest dream to pull it off, that America is just a very small contingency in that. She's just a small fly in the ointment that will eventually be plucked out. And God says that when this man falls, then you will see the conspirators coming forward boldly. And the way that they're going to give themselves away is that they're going to be full of solutions about how America should go forward. You must know that whenever something happens, and the first person that pops up with solutions, many times the old people say that that's the person who did it. Problem and solution. They create the problem and then they jump forward with the solution. Why don't we do this and this and this? That's what the old people say anyway. And so he says that when you see conspirators surging forward to plug the gap, what do we do now, America? He says it's them. They're going to rush forward with solutions, with ideas, with suggestions, with thoughts, offering different platforms, reinstatement plans. How do we move on from this? And replacement strategies and succession planning. You've heard succession planning told to you. And democratic countries don't have succession planning. Democratic countries, so the rumor goes, host free and fair elections. And anybody who is up for the challenge, anybody who meets the criteria can stand in a free and fair country to take part in those, quote fingers, free and fair elections. But then when the Holy Spirit is telling you that the nation is actually going to embark on replacement strategies and on succession planning, then what that tells you is that just as Amtrak runs along one track, but then if it's about to go in a different direction, the track will shift and the train will just seamlessly move on to a different track. That is how America is going to seamlessly move from this independent democratic republic into the thing that I have been describing to you here forever. The kingdom with prefects and side prefects and extra prefects and under prefects and under prefects. The huge bureaucracy that I've been describing to you here for years, where they will categorize people by skill, and they will put people into high living areas and then high density areas and then the rich people's areas. And then even in terms of food, we will be graded. In terms of working hours, we will be graded. There will be a huge working class population, a worker bee situation. It is not as if you have not heard it. You have surely heard it, for I have clear memories of speaking it to you many years in succession. It is just that you have not believed it. But then the Bible says, who has believed the Lord's report? Normally, that's an uplifting scripture to say, but who has heard the Lord bring forth his message and believed it? But in America, the answer is simple. It's barely anybody. The ones you see rushing forward and scrambling to fill the gap are the ones who did it, whether they acted as a whole group or whether they were a few among them that took agreement to do it. He says, whoever you see spilling forward in a feeding frenzy, just like water surging in a river, then he says, you have seen the ones who planned and did the act. American leadership is going to fall, collapse, and crumble like a bag of bricks, and a strong swirl of water will come forward to fill the gap. And as that water is coming forward, God says they're going to wash away the memory of Donald Trump, just like water washing away blood. And his death will be almost lost in the noise of planning. Well, who comes next and what's the next step? And I said, are we hearing this? Isn't succession only for kings? In a nation as modern as this one, why speak of succession? Why is God doing it? This is 2019, and I cautioned, engage your mind fully as you read this message and think outside the box, for prophecy is often layered and complicated, and the way that you need to decipher it is exactly what we have to do in real life. There's no such thing as succession in a modern day republic. That is for the United Kingdom, Monaco, the nations that have kings. There are no kings in America. But here in America, God is saying that you will see a curious novelty in the 21st century. the planning of succession. They will suggest a follow-up leader instead of following the protocols of the republic. They will want to pick someone instead of having the proper elections or voting or the contingency planning as it is written in the laws. I wonder what we're looking at right now in 2024. I wonder what we're looking at. One soldier, two soldier, bow down soldier, new soldier in the high heels. What could we be seeing? Lord, you are great. The next part of the prophecy is concerning the U.S. Constitution. I see the American Constitution and all the founding documents have become a joke. I see the Constitution in shreds, and every liberty that is written on it is being erased by an invisible pen. The words are erasing backwards on an old parchment document, starting from the bottom up. I see the words flying off the page when they are erased until all that's left at the very top is the preamble. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Below that sentence, there is nothing left. Now, this prophecy I got in June 29, 2019. So at that time, I had not heard from God a single Kamala Harris prophecy. And yet, listen to Kamala Harris spoken of in this prophecy and backed up by the prophecies that later came about her. I see the U.S. Constitution and the founding documents of America have become a joke. I see them in shreds, and all the liberties that are protected on them are being erased by an invisible pen. The words are erasing backward on the document from the bottom up. I see them flying off, so you could just see all men. You could just see the words flying off as something began to write backward, erasing the document until all that was left at the top was something that doesn't mean anything. If at the top all you have left is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, and there's not a single sentence below that, what are the truths that you are holding to be self-evident? Obviously nothing. Kamala Harris was prophesied in the brick breaker game and something else. She was prophesied as me, even in Kamala Harris and the Beast. Kamala Harris and the Beast Part 1 and Kamala Harris and the Beast Part 2. I shared that I saw this woman writing. We write this way. We write from left to right. I saw Kamala Harris writing from right to left. She was writing backward on the Constitution. And as she wrote backward on the Constitution, each time she moved her pen, she erased a sentence on the Constitution. So as she wrote on it and wrote backwards, she undid everything that was written on it. So before I ever heard of this woman, God was showing her. He was showing a shadow of her in Donald Trump's presidency, that she erased it. Another time I said that I saw Kamala Harris and she had a wand. And as she moved the wand like this, all the words were lifting off of America's freedoms, America's freedoms, America's Constitution. All the words were flying off. And you are hearing the very same thing here, prophesied by the Lord about a year and a half before he would ever start talking about her, because he only started talking about her in November 2020. So the prophecy continues. The conspirator has struck you, America. You don't feel it yet. You were numbed with Novocaine fully before you were struck. Entertainment, toys, gadgets, games, Hollywood, Netflix, theme parks, amusement parks, easy money, fast spending, credit cards, kiddie centers, good food, fast food, bad food, TV, no exercise, porn sites, having affairs. And so many things have bloated you and now slowed you down. So God is talking about the favorite pursuits of the average American: being entertained, buying expensive clothes, buying cars, toys, gadgets, being focused on the celebrities of Hollywood and the celebrities in any other area of life. Hollywood's not the only place. We have sports celebrities. We have the intelligentsia, all the decorated people, you know, that they're always going to Harvard, Stanford, Yale, and they're saying, "An afternoon with Pastor so-and-so speaking against," and then they name another high intellectual, and then they go sit there and they have these dry, is God dead, atheistic debates for like 5 hours, and everyone is like, very good points made all round. And so this is how people spend their time. And meanwhile, God said that all this stuff was basically a shot of Novocaine to the neck that made you numb. And then after you were numb, you got walloped across the back of the head with a baseball bat several times. Your brains were crushed. They're leaking out at the back, but because that Novocaine be good, you can't feel it. And so God says that all these things, the Novocaine that the conspirators used to strike you, has made you unaware. The conspirators have kicked you a very deadly blow, all ready to topple you, but you have not noticed. And then I saw a vision of a man, and I think I've only seen this once, but I still remember it. I saw a man kicking down the supporting structures underneath a very large edifice. And I said it was a very big thing that you could liken to a ship or a large building. And this man was walking all underneath. He was walking around the edifice and also under the edifice, and he was kicking very hard against the wooden supports that held up this big thing. So imagine something as big as a ship, and it's not being held up by maybe that metal fence or a metal rail, or a building not being held up by a very good and deep foundation with tempered steel rods all in there to ensure stability. But you build a huge skyscraper and then you put it on top of wood. You build a massive ship and then you put it on top of wood. That's what I saw. So it was basically an infrastructure underneath that did not fit the kind of thing that was being supported at the top. And there was a man walking underneath, and he was kicking every wooden support, and I was hearing every one of them cracking. That man did not miss. Crack, crack. And every time he kicked, the wood would split into and fall. A perfect kick every time. On to the next, on to the next, and on to the next. And soon I began to see that there were just a few wooden supports left under that massive thing. And I knew that when that man was finished kicking all the wooden supports out from underneath, he was going to walk cleanly on the other side. So he was not going to get trapped underneath there. He was going to walk away cleanly on the other side, unharmed. He will not stay to be crushed underneath. Readers, pay attention. Understand what is being shown here. Use wisdom and apply it to a modern day scenario. This man will not stay to be crushed underneath this falling structure. Having kicked out all the supports, he is going to stand free and clear and watch the edifice smash on the ground and be destroyed by itself. Workers and actors within America, not actual actors. An actor is simply a person who's playing a part in a narrative or story. Workers and actors within America have worked to bring her down, and now the triggers for the greater events that will officially end the USA have to be pulled. Somebody's got to pull the trigger, and this, killing Donald Trump, will be one of the biggest ones that they have. And so there are many people who encounter these prophecies, and as they are doubling and tripling down in the fact that they don't believe it, I don't believe it, I don't believe you, none of these things move me. Of course, I'm not doing this work to find out what you believe or what you think of it. I'm doing this work so I can finish and God be glorified that his word was completed. What God is saying here is that the people who are doing this thing are, for a time at least, going to be successful. So there's a lot of people, I see this dissonance everywhere. They can see that Revelation 6 definitely talks of successive horses coming, the conquering horse being the first one. They can see that Revelation 6 is talking about successive horses coming and successive hardships coming, the red horse being one. It brings war, it triggers violence, men will turn against each other, and blood will flow. And then what people will say to something that was in the Bible long before they were born is, we can still pray. We can pray and God can change it. What happened to so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth? It will not return to me void, but it shall indeed accomplish the thing for which I sent it. What happened to that? Why is it that in this generation, that is the final generation that are going to eat these metal rivets that I'm bringing here, this is the generation that elevates itself in pride so much that they actually think that God will subjugate or submit his word to their will. Who taught Christians that because prayer is indeed powerful, because prayer actually does move the hand of God, that you can even venture into the sacred things, the finished things, the prophecies that have been resting here? So John, Prophet John, Apostle John, he did his work, right? He labored, he finished this course. They tried to boil him. They did so many things to him. But because Jesus was going to appear to that man later in his life, when they banished him to Patmos, then God was like, yeah, great. Now I've got him alone. And then went to give him the visions. So John endured heinous things, the things that killed Peter, the things that killed Paul, the things that sent Barnabas and all the rest of them to horrible deaths ahead of time. But Jesus was keeping this same John that used to rest in his bosom and call himself the disciple that Jesus loved. So this man endured all these things and is now waiting in his older age with his burn scars everywhere. And then his master comes to him and begins to reveal to him the final things. And this man was faithful to capture all of it in the book of Revelation. But then today's Christians are like, revelation for who? These things can be changed. We can pray. This type of pride, it is a destroying pride. It is a pride that first starts off as termites that eat the eyes, land of the blind. When the termites have eaten everything and there's just dark staring holes that I see every day, then they trickle down through the canal and eats up the eardrums so that the person is then put into darkness. Then it is this person with the eyes gone and the ears eaten up by the termites who then begins to use the large tongue to say, we can pray and God can change things. My God, they say, is a miracle working God. And indeed, your God is a miracle working God because the edifice, the idol, the creation, Santa Jesus that you have formed according to your own will, that guy can do anything. That guy can out Jesus. Your Jesus is greater than Jesus of the Bible. So sure thing, he can do anything. He can outdo Revelation prophecies that you are hearing now in the modern day. So God says that this person, this man that you see kicking out the struts, this is what these, we have a unique opportunity to create for ourselves. That's what they're doing. I have said so many times that for the final kingdom of the beast to rise, all nations must die. All nations must die. But the problem here is that the people within the nations cry out, no, we shall live, we shall continue on. The Bible says 10 territories under 10 kings, only 10. We have hundreds of countries that were one and then split into two. And then a little region split off because the region thought, well, I don't want to be left behind. So I'm going to split off and I'm going to have a flag and a national song too. Hundreds of nations, the Bible says only 10. The nations cannot get it into their head that they must die in their current formulation so that they shall be formulated against their will into a new formulation. The nations say no. Formulation for who? America is going to die. There are workers and actors within the country that have worked to bring her down. And this is all the way back in 2019. This is a lot of years ago for God to be saying this, that the nation has already fallen, that she only has a few support structures left. And look at the state of the country now. You go places and absolute strangers are starting to ask you, who do you think is going to, who you're voting for? The nation of no secrets. Arm candy status. Total strangers discuss it as if they're brother and sister. Your secret ballot status. It's everywhere. It's on every podcast. It's everywhere in the street. The triggers for greater events that will officially end the USA are all that remain to be pulled. And God says somebody's going to pull the trigger. And an assassination is one of the biggest triggers that they have to topple this nation to get it where they need it to go. If this nation doesn't have its war, if this nation doesn't fight itself, then how can a savior come in and stop the war and make everybody happy? The death blows that the Lord God has struck the United States are already great. Here they are. One by one, they will all appear, although some of them are already here. Fire, flood, famine, poverty, loss, economic downturn, homelessness, devastation, calamity, woes, fire from the sky, fire from bombastic and ballistic weapons, fire from nuclear and radioactive weapons, slavery, molestation, rape, violation, woes, hunger, mourning, tears of sorrow, desolation, and wretchedness, woes, woes, woes. But now another blow is coming, and the Lord shall allow it for a judgment upon America. This ends the prophetic word of the Lord. And then all that's at the bottom of this prophecy is where you can follow the Master's Voice in print, or where you can find it on Facebook. And I didn't even have podcast then. This is very early. I started the blog in May 29. And so to get a prophecy like this on June 29, I'd basically only been set up shop on the internet 1 month. So I'm sure you can imagine, with a president sitting in office, what the response was on a prophetic message like this. And to those of you who like to anticipate God, you're always whipping out Google Calendar. Well, it has to happen before this election. And bear in mind that this prophecy came with a year and a half going into President Donald Trump's attempt to take the White House for a second time. So this prophecy preceded him trying to get elected a second time. And here he is with us, alive and well. But then the wise ones, prophecy downloaders of the internet, are now taking the Donald Trump prophecies and saying, well, we'll see if it's of God. Everything that I tell you is of God. The problem that you fail to understand is fire, flood, famine, poverty, loss, economic downturn, homelessness and devastation, calamities, woes, fire from the sky, fire from the bombastic and the ballistic weapon, fire from the nuclear and the radioactive weapon, the slavery, the molestation, rape, violation, woes, hunger, mourning, tears of sorrow, desolation, and wretchedness, woes, 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 and also the blow of an assassination. That is what you're failing to understanding. You're failing to understand who is speaking to you when you come here. You're failing to understand his great anger at the church, first and foremost. You're failing to understand right behind that, and in fact even equal to it, his anger at a nation that he says has shut him out and is now attempting to mock his words, downplay them, and say that they are, let me try to list them in order, the divination of the girl from the book of Acts, the words of a hateful woman who just hates America, the words of a woman who just hates President Donald Trump and wants to see him die, lies, false prophecy, the utterings of a false prophet, a person operating out of witchcraft, the words of a witch, the words of a diviner, the words of a soothsayer, the words of someone who, the way she gets you is, she mixes lies and truth. That's how most of them get you. The things that you can say, the things that you have said. Even if the sun was to melt into the moon and form a new luminary, you would never be able to undo them in the ears of the Lord. The prophecies, for I have taken the time to at least try and get as many as I remember, the prophecies that contain information about Donald Trump, one or another. I'll start from 2022 because that's as far as I've got in print, and then I'll have to take a look at my channel and just see the ones that cover 2023 and the rest. All the titles don't come to mind, but changes ahead. You will see shakings October 14, 2022. This is a live prayer call. The very beginning of it says, God is saying that Donald Trump is going to die. President Donald Trump is going to die. He is going to be killed. His enemies are going to take him out because they know the amount of clout and following that he has built up to now. He would be a tough man to beat in any election. He would be a kind of guy who always splits the ticket. And also, they are tired of him because he is starting to do his own thing. Actually, let me pause here so I can read to you the extra bit that the Lord added. It is good for the prophecy to be cohesive, and then I can simply handle pointing you out where you can hear different things. This is just a brief sentence or two from the Lord, and the date for it is July the 31st, 2024. And this is what the Lord said when I was preparing in prayer and just sitting before his face to see if there's anything that he wanted to add to the prophecy. Many times I'm getting ready to do the prophecy and I'll pray and I will say, Lord, is there anything you want your people to know? And then usually if he has something he wants you to know, that will be given even before the prophetic word. God said, Donald Trump will fall into the hands of his co-conspirators, and his life will come to an end. He will have a swift, brutal exit. He will not die in privacy, but by a sniper's bullet, in front of witnesses, in front of everybody. He will be like President Lincoln and President Kennedy, sacrificed to higher goals that have nothing to do with him or his role in them anymore. So right here, let's hone in on the word co-conspirators. Is that a word that we use for someone who is innocent of conspiracy? If there's 9 conspirators and then one is running late because the train messed him up, and the other ones say to him, Henry, we're simply going to have to start the meeting. And then someone is sitting next to him on the train. And they say, hey, who was that? And he say, oh, my co-conspirators. What do you think the third person who asked the question would think? Would they think that Henry actually doesn't know the other 9 people who are in the conspiracy? Or would they immediately know by the use of the word co-conspirators that, in fact, the missing piece of the puzzle who is now commuting quickly to the underground meeting is Henry, the co-conspirator? So how many times must God tell you that this man's hands are not clean? The reason that Donald Trump's hands are clean in the eyes and ears of America is that if he is actually put into his proper designation as one of these who have an opportunity to create for themselves a new world whatever, then America will be unable to tout him as the golden boy and son that he is. You cannot be a co-conspirator and also America's great hope. For America at least has 2 whits of wisdom to know that if she has conspirators against her, all her conspirators hate her. But in order for her to love Trump, he cannot be seen as a conspirator. So say you. God says that the people who are going to kill him are literally his comrades in arms in conspiracy. That's what co-conspirators means. It means a worker with, a participant with. And God has been saying this as far back as 2022. The prophecy is called MAGA deception and the beast system, where God says that this man is a federal operative, that he is just one flapping wing on a single bird that also has a blue flapping wing. This man would probably golf in public with Obama if he could get away with it. But your eyes are always watching your idol. And so they always play boxy in public. But then they go and they have cigars at the back because you can't see that far back. God says that he's going to fall into the hands of his co-conspirators, and that's how his life will end. A brutal and swift exit. Now, as I explained in the beginning, we're not in the age of coming up close to plunge daggers into the heart. This is in 1442. So the swiftest, brutal way is what we got a preview of on July the 14th. That is by using bullets. God says he won't die in privacy. He'll go by the sniper's bullet in front of witnesses, in front of everybody. Now I was thinking, Lord, what do you mean by everybody? And then all of a sudden, social media, live streaming of every event, every speaking engagement, even a one-on-one interview, it goes out to the entire world. Anyone around the world who has YouTube and some bandwidth can tune in to any live broadcast of this man. And God says that he will go like Lincoln and Kennedy. How did Lincoln and Kennedy die? In obscurity, privately, on the farm, at Camp David. Lincoln went in a packed out opera house. They blew him to pieces as he sat in his booth watching opera. President Kennedy lost most of his brain matter in an open-top car in a parade that every able-bodied American attended in the 60s. I've always told you that when you die in a way that makes people go, that God hates you. For God does not do such to those that he loves. David got to grow old, wrapped up in blankets with a cute young thing that used to nestle up to him because old people have less body heat. She wasn't sleeping with him because at that point, he had passed the age where men have an interest in that. But Bathsheba, his wife, and the rest of the kingdom, the rest of the palace, loving that man so much, took it upon themselves to find a maiden that looked after his needs, feeding, cuddling with him, so that at night when his old bones were shivering, for this is part of the blessing, you get to live long when God loves you, when his old bones could not warm up, a young thing cuddled up with the king with his wife's full agreement and knowledge. And she kept him warm until finally God's beloved would fall asleep. David lived long enough to complete his succession planning When they tried to take the throne away from Solomon, claiming he was a bastard child, his father's mistake, they held a whole other coronation. And the queen and the prophet, I think it was Nathan, they came to him along with Solomon and they said, Father, who is in your heart? And to whom did God instruct you to give the kingdom? And when David heard about it, no tantrum. He simply said, bring my scepter, bring my crown, bring some oil, get on your knees, boy. And he fixed it. When God loves you, succession planning goes well. It will never end on a public address by a sniper's bullet. You have heard in this prophecy from long ago how President Lincoln went out. And you have heard now in this addition, this tiny annex at the end of the prophecy, that President Kennedy also bought it in a similar way. So now you have two witnesses that can prove to you that what God used the statue to say, but they've done it before and they will do it again. So they did it to Lincoln and they did it to Kennedy. Who's going to fill that slot called again? He will be like President Lincoln and President Kennedy, sacrificed to higher goals that have nothing to do with him or his role in them anymore. And God now seals it perfectly. Higher goals. We have an opportunity to create for ourselves. Who is this ourselves? Do the American people think that they will participate in this thing that is being created for this group of people called ourselves? Is this an American goal? He will be sacrificed to higher goals that have nothing to do with him or his role in them anymore. Again, God says in the face of stubborn people. When someone has a role in something, but they're not going to be playing that role anymore, does that mean that they never played a role in it before? No, the word anymore means we cut you off here. Thank you for your service, Marine. Thank you for your service, Air Force One person. Thank you for your service, Cadet. Thank you for your service, ex-president Donald J. Trump, son and friend of the conspirators who will bring him to a swift and a brutal end. And so let us go over the prophecies that have this man in them. You've heard the first one, changes ahead. The next one is hovercrafts and abominable weapons of war. I received this one. I'm going in descending order, and then I will get you the new ones. October the 15th, 2021, and God was basically saying that both President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden will lose their lives in this prophecy, as far as I recall. The Lord said that Donald Trump is a far bigger idol than Joe Biden because Joe Biden was always a struggler. We could see him visibly struggling, a man propped up by a lot of palace intrigue. Almost from the middle bit of his presidency, you could see this man struggling. Nobody starts falling that often. And then his press secretary will say, no, I talked to him last week. Sharp as a tack. She must not know what tacks are like. So God says that Donald Trump is an idol, and that was that prophecy in 2021. The other prophecy in 2022 is called The Citizen Child and Other Prophecies, September 28, 2022. This is the one where I inserted and you could hear the live prayer call where God said you took your own dirty son from your own dirty country and you exalted him up to the heavens. And I'm so offended and I'm so angry. Won't I judge you, America? Won't I take away all your bright stars? I will take away all your bright stars. You will bury them and you will be in terror because you will actually think that death is stalking the land. So that means that exactly as I've told you and you have cursed me for, famous funerals are loading in the United States. The other one is Ready Player One, October the 14th, 2022. Hear how God is giving the prophecies layered. October 15, October 14, same day, next day, September 28, same month, next month. When God is speaking like this in rapid succession, Joseph told us this. You have dreamed the thing twice, Pharaoh, for the thing is sure to come. So Pharaoh just dreamed twice. And Joseph, with his ability from God, his prophetic ability from God, confirmed to that pagan leader that 2 dreams is all that's needed to make a thing sure. But here I am with more than 10, and yet I am told the thing shall not be. Be it unto you according to your belief. Ready Player One, in this prophecy, God was simply saying what the beast system is, that these people have very high-minded goals, and they want to bring in the kingdom of Satan exactly as it appears in the word of God, and they will let no single piece of the puzzle stand in their way. At the top, standing alone, when the games are done, we will see ex-President Barack Obama. He is player one, and God says the beast tolerates no loose ends, and so we will see the Clintons going away, Donald Trump going away, Joe Biden going away. And God says that this is because in the end, Barack Obama will not tolerate to have any single person alive and breathing who knows his backstory. So who knows what he's been doing when he was in Chicago, what he was doing when he was in Kenya, what he was doing when he was in the bowers of hell. Nobody knows. He will not tolerate having anyone who knows this information, and he will wipe the playing field clean. God says America will be like this, a flattened landscape, and there will be only one person standing on the landscape, ex-President Barack Obama. The next prophecy concerning Donald Trump is from October 15, 2022, and it is called The Destruction of Dagon, All Idols Will Fall. This is an in-depth study of idolatry that God gave me, saying that when people worship idols, they don't know that God is only tolerating the idols because the idols are being used by God to separate who is actually a child of God and who actually is an idolater. So many people come here fighting for their lives. We don't idolize him. We just like him. We just support him. We just like him a lot. But God says that is not so. For the inordinate affections of man cannot be detected by men themselves. Men have no ability to look into their faithless hearts and see that they have actually kicked God out of their hearts and replaced him with some guy that they cry when they see him and put on sympathy ear bandages. The next prophecy concerning Donald Trump actually came one day after the Citizen Child prophecy. That was September 28. This one is September 29, 2022. It is called MAGA Deception and the Beast System. I said that I had 3 dreams of Donald Trump. I couldn't remember one. The first one that I remembered was that he came to me and he told me to stop talking. He came to me just materialized out of the fog. Obviously, he had been walking on a dark road. And then when he came underneath the street lamp is when I actually got to see who the dark figure in the fog was. And he told me, shut your mouth or something will happen to you. Shut your mouth before something bad happens to you. And here we are, a year and a half or maybe 2 years after that. And I'm still speaking the word of the Lord as I have been instructed while people watch me and try to guess what I'm doing here. MAGA deception, God says that MAGA is just a plant, a lie. It's a whole federal deep state psyop. And my, it has been a resounding success in the United States. The next prophecy is from November 2021, Ezekiel 13, prophecy of a great fall. This is God saying that Donald Trump will not enter the White House a second time. Donald Trump sitting here in this image that you can see represented, imposing as always, but behind him, what do we see? A nation burning. That is exactly what God showed me. I was very happy to find this picture. Sometimes it's hard to find a picture that shows exactly what God showed me. Donald Trump was seated in one part of this prophecy, and behind him, America's sky was basically red and boiling, and at the bottom, the whole nation set on fire by riots, people running around, looting, fighting, shooting, all kinds of chaos, burning on the ground, burning in the sky, and then the tall buildings of America, just for added ambiance, receiving double, triple, and quadruple missile strikes. And God was showing me this is further along in the timeline after he dies. God also showed me President Trump standing on a podium that was cracked and very dirty. He looked very defeated and he was about to come down off the podium. And the podiums were basically replicated all through history. America's presidents, the podium started off very nice, very clean. Those Masons knew how to do it well. But then as the years came, more intrigue, more backstabbing, more greed, deregulating the banks, deregulating the currency, stealing corporations, big interests, all the stuff that Reagan did, all the things that Clinton did, all the things that George Bush did, all the things that Obama did. And then before you know it, we come now to the present day. President Trump was standing on a very dirty and cracked podium, and I saw that he was in the process of coming down and that he would not be winning that election. That went over very well in the United States. I still remember all the nice things that I was told about it. And then we come to little fires. I also received that in November 2020. And God was basically giving warnings to the false prophets of America who were at that time telling the nation that it was a God-given, proven Pythagoras theorem fact that Donald Trump was going to be president. They heard it from Jesus himself. 16 angels confirmed it. It was everywhere. It was Paula White. It was every single last one of them, including the flakes of YouTube. Songs were sung. Poems were penned. Books were written. And he did not go back to the White House. And in an instant, the tears began to flow. I missed it, family. I missed it. You know the bus of prophecy. If you don't hurry, you miss it. We're only human because, of course, the Bible tells us that prophecy comes by the will of man, right? That's just what it says. All prophecy comes by the will of man. God was speaking to the false prophets of America, and he was saying that the anger that he had in him because of the lies that they had told the people, because of the way that they had encouraged people to trust in the wall that they raised up and said, trust in this wall, for this wall shall not fall. God was telling in this prophecy that the wall was going to fall, and indeed, the wall fell. And God says that the judgment that is upon these false prophets is still not done. The judgment of your favorite false prophets has still not been served. When you see these people walking around, you see them and they increase in might and they increase in power and of course they increase in followers, and then you don't understand that the wrath of God is abiding on them for a time. And I have told you here, if you don't repent of the people that you followed, if you don't go and scrub their videos and not only scrub their videos from your timeline, but also scrub what they have told you from out of your heart and genuinely repent to God, the punishment of the false prophets will be a punishment for you. The problem is that the false prophets, they will pay their price once. They will simply die. That is just it. For the Bible says in this passage that God was talking about, these false prophets you see, they will fall as their wall falls. So you have already heard what the wall is going. So it can't be that the false prophets are just going to a little recreational, correctional facility to learn how to not tell lies. The difference is that I told you that when the judgment of the false prophets come to you, as you heard me simply deliver out of the Spirit moving me, it may not necessarily come to you in the loss of your own life. That would be too easy. What would you learn from that? The price will be paid in your household under your roof. And God will make sure that when it is paid, you will not be in confusion why it happened. You will know this is the fruit of the tree of my sin that I planted when I was feeling strong. It will be paid in ways that you can't miss under your roof. No one understand. Without repentance, for believing in lies. Remember that 2 Thessalonians, I think it's 2 and 10 is still there. Perishing because you did not love the lie that would have saved you. The next prophecy concerning Donald Trump is called Isaiah 10, the unrighteous decree. And this is also a very old one. It's July 31st, 2019, which means that I just got it about exactly a month after I got the one that I'm giving to you now. Another prophecy showing the assassination of Donald Trump was received on July 16. So it was received in between the one you're hearing now and the one I just spoke of, Isaiah 10, the unrighteous decree. God was saying that he did not like the policies of Donald Trump, that they were unmerciful. Remember that this man was separating families at the border. He was basically doing things that Americans love to support, things that God hates. Because God knows the history of America. That you came here and you killed people to stay here. And then when you got bored, you went and got other people and brought them over struggling on boats to work for you so that you wouldn't have to do the work yourselves. And he says that those unrighteous decrees, that the people who have forgotten where they started from and they now support it wholeheartedly, well, those same things that people have said, you've heard me prophesy in the prophecies of slavery, in the prophecies of scattering, that exactly what you have said here, well, let them come in the right way. Please don't be upset when the people tell you in Uruguay that you're not coming into the country. I see many Americans, when I speak of the urge and the need to be wise and to get your traveling documents, they say, oh no, Celestial, I've already checked. We don't need documents to enter Mexico. This is wise because you already exist in the future. When Mexico sees people pouring in across the border, Mexico's going to wake up and say, no, we cannot have this unchecked pouring into the nation. We are but a humble nation, and we do have our own people here. We need to keep track of who's coming in. And so we are now reinstating a policy where we would like you to come in with a passport. And then your mind will springboard back to 2024, when a small and simple word of wisdom could not be received of you because you were the genius who are able to go to Google, and Google is your prophet. Google tells you what the situation is, forgetting that I have been sent by God to tell you what the situation will be, that the situation will be nothing like you think it will be, that it will shift on a dime and leave you up that creek with no boat. So do whatever you want to do. And then Mexico will do what they want to do. And then you will understand that the time between a prophecy coming and a prophecy fulfilling was for you to change and become obedient. The next prophecy is one that shows the assassination of the president, July 16, 2019. Falls neatly in between these two. It's called In Quick Succession. And I saw that that President Donald Trump was coming to give a State of the Nation address. Remember, we were right at the 2.5-year mark of his presidency. He was coming to give a State of the Nation address, and he was waiting in the wings for them to introduce him. And you know that place like this, right? So the press secretary will come out and say stuff, and then will say, I give you the president. So he was waiting in the wings, and he was feeling pretty loose, pretty confident. He was waiting to come out, but then God showed me that there was another man standing right behind him. There was a man standing behind this man so close that I'm not sure how he didn't feel the man breathing on his neck. He was that close. He was so close to Donald Trump that the tips of his shoes touched the back of the president's shoes. And it was Barack Obama. Yes, Barack Obama was waiting directly in the wings behind Donald Trump. And he was so excited because the feeling in him was, I'm next. I'm next. So when Joe Biden then came into office, then people came back to this prophecy and they also said, well, it's false. Barack Obama didn't come to power. It's Joe Biden and Kamala. And I said, indeed. Indeed it is. I don't know what I was thinking. And so the next prophecy concerning Donald Trump would be, I will now have to go to my videos. Just a moment, please. The prophecy is called Notes on a Scandal Part 2. Notes on a Scandal Part 2. Biden, Kamala, Obama, and Trump. And that prophecy was simply God reinstating or reconfirming after all this time. This prophecy was given in August the 30th, 2023. And it was just God reconfirming what would happen to Donald Trump. What is going to happen to Donald Trump? He was giving the role of each of the players, what would happen to Biden, what would happen to Kamala, what would happen to Obama, and what would happen to Trump. So there is that. And there was another one also called You Will Have No Idols Left. And that one is from July the 20th, 2023. And that is the prophecy where I said that I had several dreams of Donald Trump. One of them is that I saw a massive statue raised up across. The statue was visible everywhere in America. The statue was so big that wherever you were, whatever state you were in, the statue was so high in the land that you could look from your state and see the statue of Donald Trump. And you very well know that there is no structure in the United States that is big enough to be viewed by the whole country simultaneously. But God depicted him like that. And then what I saw is that was one of the dreams, that the statue was everywhere like that. It was so big enough that you could see it, but then also down on the ground in daily life. I saw it in schools. I saw it in hospitals. I saw it in bars. I saw it everywhere that people gather. There was a smaller statue of him in locations. And then another dream in that same prophecy, You Will Have No Idols Left. The fall of Donald Trump from July 20th, 2023. I saw the president bouncing higher and higher and higher and higher. And he was on the other side of a fence. So all I would see is he'd come down and then he would bounce up again, come down and bounce up again. And then I soon put it together. Oh, this man is bouncing on a trampoline. He must be bouncing on a trampoline. And with every time he bounced down, when he went up, he went higher and higher and higher from the jumps coming down. And he began to do styles and tricks and everything in the air. And he was really, really confident. And then he came down and he went up for another jump. And though the fence was really tall and I couldn't see what was happening, it came into my heart that some people came and took the trampoline away. And I was thinking, sir, people took your trampoline away. You will not come back from this jump. So God was showing how whenever Donald Trump takes a hit, he comes back bigger. Whenever Donald Trump gets accused of something, the people rally around him and send him all their pennies and coins and say, but he's a good man. And so God was saying that this man was not his choice. He was not his pick. And that all God was going to do, all he was going to do is simply abandon the man to his enemies. That's all the Lord said. I will abandon him to his enemies. And then we all know what enemies do. Another prophecy where Donald Trump was mentioned, he got an honorable mention in the prophecy of flooding that came to Texas. The prophecy is called "The Floods Are Coming, Florida, Texas Judgments, and Trump." And this prophecy came on April the 1st, and I made it on April the 2nd. And it was talking about how God said he's going to hit Florida and Texas. This was a year ago, with extreme water judgments, sinkholes, shifting of the water table. He was going to flood them out. And that prophecy was fulfilled 10 days later on April the 12th, especially in Florida. But at the end of the prophecy, there was a section where God is saying that he's going to judge Florida and Trump for many sins, Florida and Texas for many sins. And one of the sins is the extravagant, infuriating worship and exaltation that those two states do of Donald Trump. And what I saw is that Texas had a small statue of Donald Trump, meaning it was not small, it was pretty big, but it could not be compared to the statue of Donald Trump that was raised up in Florida. The thing was massive, and it had its arm out like this, exactly like Lenin in Lenin's famous statue. And all the people were around the statue, and they were trying to manipulate and maneuver the statue with ropes. But then something happened. They didn't have enough strength, I guess, to keep it standing, or something happened. The statue fell and it shattered. And I said that I was surprised to see a metal statue shattering, because that's not usually what happens to them. They might shear off an arm, but they're not going to shatter into a million tiny little dissolving pieces. This statue fell and it dissolved. It shattered into 1,000 pieces that then just basically dissolved and disappeared. But the strange thing is that when it hit the earth and shattered, all the huge crowd of people that had been around propping it up and trying to fix it on its pedestal shattered with it. And that is exactly what is going to happen to people who think that they're stronger than God, who think that the messages of God are lies, who think that one person can sit in her home and apparently, quote fingers, wish evil on him. America, I don't know who taught you, but you embarrass the few Christians that are here. What pastor told you that the prophetic word is actually a person's wish? What person told you that the utterance of Jesus Christ to nations is the messenger's wish? If that was the case, then you are all prophets. You should be able to wish yourself out of debt. You shouldn't be going for IVF because you can just wish a baby into your body. You should be able to wish yourself into Bel Air and all the affluent neighborhoods, those who hunt after Birkins and rich old husbands. If wishes were this powerful, then the majority of you ganged up against myself should be able to wish yourself the perfect outcome. So why are you so pressed? Why are you angry? Just wish. Because that's how prophecy works. Wish and you will get exactly what you wish. I'm Celestial and this is the Master's Voice. The prophecy that you have been listening to is called Potus, June 29, 2019. It's a very old prophecy, and I have given you also God's extra word from July the 31st, 2024. So I'm Celestial and this is the Master's Voice. God bless you, and until I see you again, goodbye.